In 2025, Taiwan will officially cross the threshold into a super-aged society. 1 in 5 citizens will be over 65. Within that demographic, over 1.18 million elderly individuals are currently living entirely alone. This clinical flowchart tracks the exact mechanism of this crisis. Emotional loneliness translates directly into physical decay. Isolation is a measurable pathology that actively destroys the human body. When a person is cut off from social contact, the brain interprets that absence as a chronic threat. The resulting stress response overactivates the HPA axis, the system connecting the brain to the adrenal glands, dumping high levels of the hormone cortisol directly into the bloodstream. That constant flood of cortisol triggers systemic inflammation. Over time, this chronic physiological stress degrades neuroplasticity and literally shrinks the hippocampus, the region of the brain responsible for memory and executive function. Isolation biologically accelerates dementia. If a patient presents these symptoms, the default medical response is to prescribe a pill. Yet clinical data shows that current dementia drugs hold an efficacy rate of only 27 to 35%. A purely chemical approach cannot cure a disease rooted in a fractured environment. Because the biological decay starts with a severed social network, the intervention has to repair that network. To do this, doctors in Taiwan are writing a very different kind of order, a social prescription. The first approach bypasses the pharmacy altogether. It is known as Green Prescribing, where a physician officially directs a patient to enter a forest environment. The Lion's Head Mountain program offers a clear example. Patients embark on a 5.5-hour guided healing journey. They aren't there to race to the summit or break a sweat. The pace is deliberate, and smartphones are strictly put away. The clinical foundation for this is attention restoration theory. Urban environments drain cognitive resources through hyper-focused, directed attention. A forest environment, by contrast, induces soft fascination, giving the brain the precise conditions required to recover from cognitive fatigue. The first step of the journey uses guided mindfulness to deliberately downshift the patient's nervous system. The immediate clinical objective is to lower sympathetic nerve activity, the body's fight-or-flight mechanism, and establish a baseline of calm. Later in the day, the path leads to local mountain temples for cultural healing. Sitting quietly, listening to traditional temple bells, and observing the smoke from incense serve a specific clinical purpose. These sensory inputs are engineered to reduce anxiety and promote autonomic nerve regulation. This structured immersion in nature moves the nervous system out of its stress loop, actively lowering the circulating stress hormones that isolation built up in the first place. The second intervention moves from the forest into built environments, utilizing Taiwan's historic landmarks and museums for a cultural prescription. Institutions like the Tamsui Historical Museum and the National Museum of Taiwan Literature rely on a framework called nostalgia therapy. They bring in patients experiencing mild dementia and use history to anchor their fading memories. The Literature Museum runs a highly structured 8-week program. The core of this treatment revolves around dementia resource boxes, carefully integrated with the museum's permanent exhibits. These boxes hold multi-sensory triggers: a vintage coin from the 1920s, an ocean drum mimicking crashing waves, or poetry in a local dialect. When a patient holds that coin or hears that wave, the sensory input bypasses damaged areas of the brain. It stimulates dormant cognitive pathways, sparking connections that standard clinical conversations can no longer reach. The artifact serves as cognitive scaffolding. It gives the patient a tangible thread to hold onto, allowing them to rebuild language expression and regain a sense of self-worth, even as short-term memory fails. The third pillar brings the treatment directly into the neighborhood through community prescribing. This involves referring elders to local Aboriginal farms, shared community kitchens, and neighborhood walking groups. At Donghua University, a cross-generational program pairs college students with local elders to co-learn and guide community tours together. The mechanism here is highly practical. The program physically extracts individuals from empty apartments and digital isolation, inserting them into a shared space where their presence is required and their contributions matter. The results are measurable. Physicians track the success of these programs by recording quantifiable drops in standardized clinical loneliness scores over time. By addressing the social conditions that fuel physiological stress, community prescribing targets a critical driver of functional decline and repairs the broken social safety net. Taiwan is taking these 3 prescriptions, green, cultural, and community, and scaling them into a nationwide system. They are transforming traditional leisure tourism into a data-driven public health strategy. The linchpin of this entire system is a new professional role called the link worker. They act as the human bridge, taking the doctor's initial medical assessment and carefully matching the patient to the right local resource. To measure these interventions as verifiable medicine rather than anecdotal experiments, Taiwan relies on a closed-loop digital tracking system. The data follows the patient from the hospital clinic to the community program, and then loops right back into their medical record so doctors can track the clinical benefits. This approach aligns with the World Health Organization's standard, which recognizes health as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. It is a model that requires medicine to look past the symptoms of infirmity. To slow the progression of cognitive and physical decline in an aging population, treating biological symptoms is no longer enough. Medicine must reach beyond the clinic and reconnect the human being to their culture, to their land, and to each other.